I I got into music because my brother is a church organist, and he instilled a lot of what I know now today to be my musicality into me. I was, without even knowing it, I was being drawn into church music by hearing it in the house all the time. My brother would practice at home. And when I got to a certain age, maybe 5 or 6 years old, because there are no bass pedals on the piano at home, my brother would get me to play the bass parts. So I understood to all these hymns and church music. So I understood the relationship between the bass line and the melody line, and where they all fell into the chords. I understood chord structures, and I was fascinated by the relationship between the bottom line and the top line, which is really what I do in Asia. I sing the top line and I play the bass line, and both together they fit into the chord. I have an ability to be able to see chords in my head. I know where each note of the chord is in my head because of the way that my brother schooled me in music, and I thank him very much for that. He is still an organist and choir master today, and we have very different experiences of music, even though both of us have continued to be musicians all our lives. When I reached a certain age, again about 12, at 12 I started to branch away from what I'd learned with my brother, and I started to listen to and to play rock music, which was then started to come into Britain from America. I latched onto R&B, and although I liked R&B because of the energy and it was rock and roll, it wasn't really until people started adding classical changes to rock music that I started to get really interested, because then I would be able to use what I'd learned in church music and apply it to rock music, which is exactly what I did. So when I the first professional band that I joined really was Family. I played in a couple of other groups after leaving college, but the first one that I joined that had done anything recording-wise or concert-wise was Family, and I joined as the bass player and second vocalist, and it gave me an experience of being on the stage in front of people with a successful band, but I didn't have to take the full amount of the spotlight. I learned what it was like to be on the stage and perform live without all the pressure being on me. And I learned a lot with Family. My next step from Family was to join King Crimson, where the spotlight was on me, because I was an equal writer with the other guys in the band, with Bill Bruford and with Robert Fripp. And I was the singer, bass guitarist, and so there was a lot more responsibility on me in King Crimson than there was in Family, but what I'd learnt from Family was very important to me to get to see me through the King Crimson period. I was very confident, and I was very good at that point. My technique, bass technique was very good. But King Crimson was to end prematurely, I thought. I felt there was a lot more life in the band. But in 1974, that was it. It was over. So I went through a period where I worked with other bands that I wasn't really a part of. I wasn't a fundamental part of Roxy Music. I wasn't a fundamental part of Uriah Heep, and I wasn't a fundamental part of Wishbone Ash. But I always believed in a very strong work ethic, that I keep working, and no matter what, I keep working. So going through the motions with these bands, it was just a stepping stone to get to the next project which would be feature more of a musical involvement from me. So if you take King Crimson as really the first step in that direction, where I was a fully fledged member of a band, where I was a singer and a contributing writer to the material of the band. The next one after that was UK, and I'd been on a world tour in about 1975 with Roxy Music, and we played in Japan, we played in Australia, we played in North America, and every time I would do an interview with a journalist or a radio person, they would say the same thing. Well, you know, Roxy Music's okay, but you know, when are you going to do something real? Like King Crimson, you know, I had to, well, okay. So I remember I wrote to Bill Bruford from Australia, and I said to him, there's still a lot of demand. Everyone that I go to do an interview, they're asking me about King Crimson, and when are we going to do something like that again? And so when I got back from that tour, we set about forming UK. He brought in his favourite musician, and I brought in a musician that I'd been working with in Roxy Music, which was Eddie Jobson. Bill Bruford had been working with Alan Holdsworth, and we put the four of us together. There was UK. UK did in its own way in 1977, 78, did in its own way what Crimson had done for me in 73, 74. But again, there was a difficulty with the personalities involved in the band, and that it only really lasted for 2 years. In 1979, we came to a halt. At that point, I'd been talking to John Kolodner at Geffen Records. He was still at Atlantic Records then. And he had been looking to me to form a band that they could really get their teeth into, that would sell a lot of records. And when I formed UK, he said, yeah, nearly, but not quite. And so I'd kept my contact with John Kolodner, and in 1980 I did a solo album called Caught in the Crossfire, which was looking toward the new decade, to the 80s.
Well, I started out when I was about 5 years old singing in choirs, because both my parents were musical. So I had a very strong musical connection in my family. And I suppose that was the only thing I ever really wanted to do. I studied piano and classical organ, and started getting involved in bands, and it was pretty much, as I said, the only thing that I wanted to do. And I went to music college and got into doing advertising jingles in London, and it just kind of escalated from there, really. I was doing a lot of session work for various people, and then I met up with Trevor Horn, who, you know, most people will remember. We made a song called Video Killed the Radio Star, which was the first video that was played on MTV, and that really kicked us off and brought us into the public eye, I suppose. And we got involved with the management of Yes, a guy called Brian Lane, and he put us up together with Yes, and we started doing some writing with them. And that's when I met Steve, actually, first of all. And it was quite a shift for us, because we were mainly known as pop musicians, and I think that people, certainly the Yes fans, saw us coming into that situation as being taking over from John Anderson and Rick Wakeman. They saw us as being the Pretenders. But we made an album with Yes Drama, and then I think it was mainly out of that the idea of the Asia thing was starting to build up. It wasn't called Asia then, but it was, Steve had started working with John Wetton, and Steve rode me in, and they'd rode Carl in already. So we all kind of just got together in this rehearsal room in London, and that was really how Asia was effectively born, was out of a few sort of fragments of other bands.
In 1981, after Yes had an album and a tour called Drama, then where I met Geoff Downes and Trevor Horn, we disbanded, and for 2 months I wasn't doing very much, and the manager said to me, "Oh, I just met John Wetton, he's not doing very much." So I said, "Oh, that's a coincidence." So this chap put us together, and we went in a room with an amplifier each and guitars and things, and we just sat in this room for a few hours, and it was great fun. We played some stuff together, and I thought John was, I hadn't realised how technically proficient John was, and really what a great singer he was, and that he'd written all these songs, and so we started collaborating, and then he said, well, a really good drummer, what about Carl Palmer? I thought that'd be good, So likewise, when we met Carl, we got on really well, and then they thought maybe we would just be a trio. And I said, no, you've got to hear Geoff Downes. I mean, he's got all this Fairlight and Synclavier stuff. So I had to convince them to have a rehearsal with Geoff. And when we it finished, they came out and said, oh yeah, you were right. And so that's when we felt that, well, actually we went on and did try a few other people to add, so it would be a 5-piece band, but it didn't work. So we realised that we'd really hit the mark with the four-piece Asia.
Asia, the group, are all friends from many, many years ago. We all knew each other because of the bands we were in prior. Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson. The only person I didn't know was Geoff Downes, but he was a friend of Steve Howe's because he had played in Yes. So we all knew each other, and it was something that happened sort of quite naturally. London is quite a small place. And I had a call from one of the managers of Yes, calling me asking if I was interested. Emerson, Lake and Palmer had just finished, and I had taken some time off, and I had moved to Spain, and they asked me if I would be interested in looking into the situation, taking it further, and I decided that I would like to. At that particular stage, there was only 3 members. We did not have Geoff Downes. He came in sort of last, as it were. So the group started that way, really. You have to understand that this album, which we're playing in its entirety, the first Asia album, was a very important album when it first came out. It was the beginning of MTV. So the whole concept of Asia is incredibly important. In the history of music, we probably had one of the biggest albums that MTV ever promoted. We had some great video clips, which were state of the art at the time. The album was #1 for 9 weeks. 7 of those weeks were consecutive weeks. Then it went down and it went back up. And the single also was #1 for 9 weeks. So the whole thing is incredibly memorable because of what it meant at the time. And we were at the beginning of the new technology, which was videos and music TV. So the whole thing is, is quite important, really.
And it was much shorter, song-orientated compositions with a lot of vocal, a lot of emphasis on the vocal. And he said, yeah, this is the direction, and now you just need the vehicle, the band. And in 1981, I was introduced to Steve Howe, and we started work on some basic song structures, some ideas, and we were looking around for people to form a band. We didn't know what it was called then, but we just had an idea that that we could form a musical entity. And there are a lot of ideas about people who would be able to work with us. And gradually, over a period of a few months, Carl came into the fold, Carl Palmer, and because of the management connection and the fact that Jeff had been in Yes, he was suggested as another member. I liked the idea that Jeff would bring another facet to the group, which is the keyboard depth, that he was able to get, the different sounds and the textures that he would bring. We didn't know at that point, until we sat down at the piano together, that our writing styles would be identical, very, very compatible. So when that happened, everything was there. All of the ingredients for a group were there, and all we had to do then was to make a record. I had enough songs started that when we put them together with Steve and with Jeff, the songs just came very, very quickly. We then found our producer, Mike Stone, who was the last guy to come in to see us. We auditioned about 9 or 10 producers, and none of them seemed to have the right idea about what we're looking for in terms of sound. We had a very strong idea of what sound we wanted for the album, which was, we wanted to be big, quite bombastic, lots of vocal, lots of layers of guitars, keyboards, big fat drum sound, big vocal sound. The last guy that walked through the door was Mike Stone. He had just finished work with Queen, Journey, and he was just exactly right for this band. Absolutely right. Personality and his technical expertise were exactly right. So everything fell into place at the right time, and in 1981 we recorded the first Ayrshire record, and that really is where it started. After that, lots of things happened, but to go through what happened in the last 25 years would take forever. So all it needs for me to say really is that what started in 1981 is now being carried on by the same 4 people in 2007, and here we are.
It is great getting back with the original members, because we didn't do very much really when we had all that success. It was a lightning success. We were slightly rushed into the second album, and we sort of almost stumbled over ourselves, as if we hadn't realised that we needed a plan, a game plan to go forwards. And the first album was so successful, we were excited by that. But then, so when the idea came up to reform this time with all the original members, it really felt the right time. I think we'd all had immense time to consider the pitfalls of not making Ayrshire a productive and continuous group, but making it a very short period in our lives. So to come back and do it again was almost like trying to put something right that we didn't quite do it right the first time. So it's really been a lot of fun since last year doing this. I think we're more grown up, we're more intelligent, and in a way, I think we understand the music better now, and we can look back at the first album and sort of appreciate it ourselves.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'd forgotten, I think all of us had forgotten how good the band sounded 25 years ago with the chemistry of those 4 people. We've had it in different versions since then, and lots of different permutations of those 4 people, but never the same 4 people that started it. So yeah, it's great. It works. You know, the chemistry is there. It was successful in 1982 for a very good reason. And the reason is that it's those four people. And you take any one of those out, it doesn't work.
It's exciting. We started last year. Last June, July, we were out in America. And it's very nice to revisit something after 25 years. And we are now celebrating the anniversary of the release of the first album this particular month, the month of March. So last year we tried it and we played 19 concerts in America, and it was enjoyable. And I think it's something that all of us are kind of happy to, to carry on doing and look into it. And it's been, whilst it's been nostalgia in some way, for a lot of people as well, not just us, it's been a great experience. The experience being the people that have come to see us play, not only here in Japan, for example, but in America and in the UK. After all of that time, to have that amount of people still wanting to see you and hear you is quite interesting. And I think it's because not only was the group very good, Asia, when it first started, but the individuals have such a strong history. We have all come from exceptionally well-known groups. So I think we have a large pedigree internally which attracts people, not only because it's the original members of Asia, but because of what we've done as individuals. So I think it makes it unique. So it's been, for me, extremely rewarding to know that people have waited and waited to see if it would ever happen, and when it did, they've actually come along to see us play.
I think the original members tour is a great thing for all of us, because I think we never really took it to the point that we could have taken it to at the time. I think that we had a lot of stuff that we'd not finished. It was a case of unfinished business, and when we got to, I think when we decided to come back together again last year, everyone had a really different attitude, I think, about how we perceived each other from certainly the early days. And I think a lot of people tended to put this tag the supergroup on us in the early days, and I don't think that was it was a good thing in terms of media exposure, but it wasn't a good thing for us to be living up to, because I think we saw Asia as being just another band to us, and we didn't realise how big it was going to be, and that in many ways was part of the problem. So I think that as the years have gone by, we've managed to drop ourselves of that burden and really go into it with very much an open mind.
The song, I think, that has a particular meaning to me is not what everyone would think, which would be Heat of the Moment. It's not at all. The most significant song that we play, for me, in the set tonight would be Ride Easy, because I didn't know at the time. The first album, there's a lot of emotional stuff covered on the first album. Usually about a sense of loss. About Only Time Will Tell is losing someone quite dear. Heat of the Moment is an apology. I never meant to be so bad to you. And a lot of it is about emotional loss. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually writing about what was happening to me at the time. And the words to Ride Easy are particularly poignant to me, and it comes across to the audience as well. But it's particularly significant to the four people on stage. It means a lot to me because it describes exactly how I was feeling at the time when Asia was born. and it just seemed like one long party. Every night turned into the next night, and it was just one long party. And it's not like that now. It's not a party anymore. We actually enjoy what we're doing, but it's great to revisit that and to remind myself of what it was like then. Ride Easy was never on an album, was never on an Asia record. It was on the record, it was on the B-side of Heat of the Moment. But it was on, it was used at the time as a commercial tool. That is, it was put onto the cassette, because the record company were getting too many bootlegs of cassettes, because cassettes were very easy to bootleg at the time. It was before CDs came in, and they wanted to give the cassette a chance to sell. They'd put a bonus track on the cassette, which was not on the album, in the hope that a lot of people would buy the cassette rather than just tape it. And it worked. But Ride Easy was that song. Ride Easy was the bonus song that was never on an Asia record, on an album. And so it's nice, I think, to be able to give that to the audience and say, this is for you, because it means a lot to us, and it's a song that you'll never find on a vinyl album anyway.
Ride easy, my friends, this journey ends before it begins.
One of the ones I most like playing is probably Only Time Will Tell, because that in many ways epitomised, I think, what Asia was pretty much all about.
One thing is sure, the time will tell.
It's hard to pinpoint which songs are more special than others from the Asia repertoire. I guess I like Without You. I quite like ballads. I quite liked romantic guitar playing, say, from people like Kenny Burrell and Segovia, and people who are very emotional. So I think in that song, even though I'm playing electric guitar mainly, I'd play a little 12-string acoustic on the original recording. Something like Without You is great fun to do now. So the other thing is we do other music. I think that broadens it too much. I think Without You, I would say. Quite often when I'm on tour like this, I play a different tune every night as my solo piece, because it makes it varied and it keeps me on my toes. And maybe for an audience in a smaller country like Japan, many people will come each night, and it will break it up that there's a different tune. So tonight, on the night we're recording, I'm going to play a tune called Intersection Blues, which is quite a fast country picking style of guitar, not dissimilar to Clap or Ram or other pieces that I've written in this style. This one is quite special because it's a dedication to the great blues guitarist Big Bill Broonzy, who isn't as famous as B.B. King and Buddy Guy and all those kind of guys, because he's actually a country blues guitarist. He played acoustic guitar, and Big Bill Broonzy was a major influence before I heard Chet Atkins and Mel Travis playing electric style country picking. I heard Big Bill Broonzy playing songs like The Glory of Love, Minding My Own Business, and so I found that he liked a certain chord called an E. Well, not necessarily an E, but he liked a certain chord called an augmented seventh, which is like a mixture of a minor and a major and a seventh, and that's why it's called augmented seventh. And in there I use the sort of inversion he uses occasionally, or there's a lot of other chords in it, and I get a certain kick out of that. Every now and again I write something that draws from my admiration for another guitarist, and originally when I wrote Clap, It was really in full respect of Chet Atkins. So this Intersection Blues is a piece I wrote with Big Bill Broonzy in mind.
I don't know if I have like favourite songs. All of them mean something. You know, all of them have a value, have a depth to them. And I enjoy playing them all. There's nothing that we're playing from that first album which I don't enjoy. Obviously, you do have songs that you like a bit more than others, but when I look at the complete concept of the first album and what it meant, I think it would be unfair to say one song is more important than the other, because the actual musical balance of that first album was a perfect crossover between progressive rock and music which was accessible, more commercial. And the combination of both of those produced that album, which has got a lot of musicality, and it was commercial. And we felt very good making it, and it fitted into the musical climate at the time. So the whole thing is important, really. It's like I said to you before, it's hard to pick out one particular thing, because it's the concept that was absolutely right, and the musical direction was perfect.
Carl Palmer.
The band Asia is what it was originally intended to be. I think we now, all of us, have a kind of emotional maturity that we didn't have in '82. That the four letters of Asia stand for the four people of Asia, and it's. It really doesn't mean anything without one of those pieces. You know, the four digits mean everything. The four letters, rather, mean everything to this band. And to see it together again as the real four people who started this, it's in some way, it restores the natural order of everything. But this is the way it should have been. This is the way it is now. Yes, that is the satisfaction of seeing those four people together again. It's those four that started it, and it's those four now.
I guess the idea of what Asia is, we can't get away from it. When we came out, you know, Geffen Records, I guess, you know, heralded it as the first supergroup of the 80s. We tried to live that down by not really making a fuss about that and going around calling ourselves, you know, like, we're a supergroup. But everybody else called us a supergroup. And I suppose what was super about it was the fact that we'd all had these other successes, you know, in our past, and we'd all achieved a certain status, if you like. And of course, I think Blind Faith or other groups were, you know, preempted us as supergroups. But I guess the name means to us, really, it was on a list of 10 names. And we threw out the other 9, and we ended up with Asia, and we adopted it because even though it's a country, or it's a whole terrain of the world, we sort of adopted it, and that didn't mean that we ate Asian food or we did things in an Asian style. But strangely enough, in the heat of the moment, I play koto in that, which, as you know, is a Japanese instrument that I love to play. I like to play a variety of stringed instruments, not just the guitar. But so there was a little bit of that going on, that we were secretly or quietly, discreetly paying some sort of vague respect to terrains outside of America, where, you know, Yes and groups like that had a lot of success, and in fact people in England used to say, why the hell don't you come and play in England again? I mean, you're always in America, you know. So in a way, instead of calling ourselves, you know, Texas America, or, you know, like other groups had, this Asia idea came up, and I think because it was short, it began with A. That was most probably what Carl would say, is it began with A. That's why we picked it, because there was something about being in the first run of alphabetical order, which was quite fun. Short, like Yes. You know, it was a good idea to be short because, you know, a long group name at that time wasn't fashionable. But we certainly enjoyed the idea of adopting something that already had a cultural meaning, you know. But as I said, we weren't adopting Asia's culture, but it was just interesting to play off of it.
It'd be very hard for me to imagine life without Asia because I've lived with it for 25 years, 25 years. It's kind of been, I feel like I'm integrated with it, so I can't really step out of it and say, I wonder what it would be like to be in that band. It's been such a big part of my life that, I couldn't really imagine it any other way. So, I do hope that we continue with the four of us and continue to make good music.
It means three friends that I've had for a long time, coming back together after a long journey through life, on our own, with our other bands that we were in, and meeting up again after 23 years and deciding that we should play again. So it's a lifetime of friendship, really. I've known some of the people in the band I've known for 33 years, you know. For example, John I've known for a long, long time, and Steve. So it has a kind of family sort of feeling about it. I mean, we don't see each other every day and talk every day on the phone. We don't have to, because it's actually closer than that. So it means an awful lot, yeah. It's been extremely rewarding, and to see and to watch everybody grow and change through the period. And when we started last year, it was 23 years since we last played. And it was quite an exciting time when we played the first song, whatever it was, which I believe the first piece we played together after all of that time was Time Again. And I thought that was befitting. Time Again. Here we go again.
Well, yeah, I'd just like to say thanks for everyone for supporting us over the years, and it's been a bit of a challenge, but we're still here and we're still enjoying it. So stay with us and watch out for a lot more music soon.
I hope you get as much joy and satisfaction out of seeing this band play as we get from performing. It's a great experience, and I wish you all peace and happiness, and from my heart.
I would just like to say that I've had an incredible musical career. I've been in many bands that have been successful, which is a lovely thing to be able to say. And whilst you have to have a certain amount of luck and you have to be good at what you do, it's the fans that have actually made it work for me. And I've had a great musical career, and it's been long, and it's been down to people wanting to see me play, wanting to see the projects that I was in. And I have to thank all the fans throughout the world, because without them, I wouldn't be here today talking to you all. So I say thank you.
I'm not really used to saying anything other than a response to the appropriate thing that's being talked about. But I guess I hope that the people that watch this show will enjoy it and feel that they're watching a band that has its sensibilities back, has its reasonable awareness of our audience, because success is a wonderful thing, but it does a lot of terrible things to people, as you've seen if you read the papers. And success can take you on a road that isn't good for the audience, and I wouldn't want an audience to look at myself or the groups I've been in and think, what a bunch of idiots, why did they be so close to having something like the dragon chasing that pearl on the front of the Asia album and never reach the pearl? So I hope that you think maybe that we reached the pearl. We're playing, hopefully now, better than we did in 1982, and you know, I hope you enjoy the music and the interconnection of these four members.